I think one of the most frequently asked questions that we have been getting around here lately is whether or not Tessie talks.
Tessie, let's try. Are you crying with happiness? Can you help me get the other stuff, Paul? I got Maggie something too. I got you a new best friend.
Sounds like she's named.
What are you gonna name her? I think you got her. Let me get Maggie her present. Oh, she's beautiful, isn't she? She's just perfect for you. I think her name is Twilight Sparkle.
Whether she is non-speaking or whether she speaks. She is basically more or less non-speaking. For anyone who is new here and this is their first video, we are a family of 7, 2 parents, 5 kids, and all 7 of us are autistic. We don't look at it as some doom and gloom thing because I know a lot of people come in here and the first video they watch, that's what they're expecting, and that's not what you're going to get here. Once in a while, she might say, Mama, but I'm talking like once a month. Maybe I hear her say mama, and it's usually if she is really, really angry with me about something. Like, usually the number one thing that Tessie gets angry about is that she has built a tower that is probably usually over about 6 feet tall, and she can't get it any higher. And it's usually a tower out of couch cushions. And she gets these towers literally taller than Paul. It's usually like I'll be making lunch and I will hear a full-on meltdown scream. And Tessie doesn't usually have meltdowns. So I'll hear like a screech, like sounds like she's in pain, sort of screech. And usually I don't actually worry that something's actually happened to her. Usually I know then that that means that she is building something and that it has gone wrong. 100% of the time when I go and check on her, it is always a building thing. She will have built a tower and it has fallen over probably 20 times because Tessie is really, really patient. That was one of the things that was kind of frustrating when she was in OT before this whole pandemic thing, when she actually got to go to OT. It was because they would, one of the things they do in OT was they would give her tasks that were intentionally a little too hard for her to do. And the point of it was that they were trying to get her to ask for help so that, not like vocally ask for help, but get her to ask, you know, like touch someone's hand or something like that. Get her to some way express that she needed help so that she would be communicating that she needed help in some way. And a lot of times one of the things would be with like this toy that had different keys to it. And I mean, at this point she was like 2 and it had a bunch of different keys and there were toys inside of this box that had different doors and she needed to put the keys in to get the toys out. And she likes that sort of thing a lot. She likes fitting things in to different spaces and finding out how they work. And so the idea was that she would have to ask for help with these keys because they were too complicated. She didn't have the fine motor skills yet to use them, except for that she would sit there and wiggle the keys into the different spaces and try to get them to work for extremely long periods of time and not get frustrated and not ask for help for a way longer period of time than you would expect a 2-year-old or eventually a 3-year-old to be able to do them. It didn't quite work the way that it was supposed to a lot of the time. Even if you showed her like, oh, Tessie, ask for help. Here, you can go like this and ask for help. She would just keep trying and trying and trying over and over again to do it herself, which is sort of Tessie. She just goes around the house a lot of the time, kind of in her own head, basically doing her own thing, finding things around the house and taking them apart and taking pieces of them and putting them back together in her own way. I've talked about this before. She took apart her high chair so that one day it just fell apart, and she had used like plastic tools that belonged to her brothers that came in a tool set. And I had seen her playing with the plastic tools next to her high chair, and I didn't worry about it because I didn't think you could use a giant blunt plastic screwdriver to actually take screws out of a high chair until the whole thing just collapsed one day. And I was like, oh, I guess you can. And she's done that to a few pieces of furniture where all of a sudden they just fall apart. So I do try to keep at least toy screwdrivers away from her. She has like a pair of pliers. She's allowed to have toy pliers. She seems not as able to take furniture apart with her toy pliers as she did with her toy screwdriver. But anyways, yeah, she doesn't really seem to need verbal communication at this point yet, although I do know that it does seem like it's getting more frustrating for her because physically she is capable of saying some words. We've talked about this before. She was in ABA for almost 2 years full-time, like 35 hours a week full-time, and we come to the conclusion that we don't believe in ABA. Our family doesn't believe behavioralism is good for autistic people, or anyone. And we really saw how bad it had been for our girls when the pandemic started and they were no longer in it. And I have some videos on that you can watch if you want to know why. Anyways, but when Tessie was in ABA, she was able to echo words on command, like for candy, because that's basically what they do. Like when she was in ABA, she would get like a cupcake, a piece of a cupcake or ice cream or candy every time she did what they wanted her to do. And so she can physically say words. That never crossed over to her saying words at home. It still hasn't. But like today, Paul heard her say very quietly to herself, princess. And once in a while, there will be something like that where we'll hear her say a word, but usually that's like a maybe once every 2 weeks, once a month sort of thing. And for the most part, she doesn't say any words at all. So for the most part, practically in everyday life, I would say that she is non-speaking. However, when Maggie got Maggie's AAC device, she was about as interested in the AAC device as Maggie was. And when she got her hands on it, she was using it to make complete sentences. Not perfectly grammatical sentences, but they were pretty long sentences. Longer and probably more, they made more sense than what Maggie would put together. Maybe Maggie would put all nouns together, and when Tessie did them, Tessie would put like a pronoun and a verb and a noun together, which made a lot of sense because when Tessie was in school, Tessie used PECs and they did a lot of the I want this, I want that. And Tessie was really, really good at that. When she saw the AAC device, I think she had a pretty good idea of how to use it. We never got to use PECs at home because in the beginning when we got the PECs board, Maggie was really interested in taking it away from her and claiming it as her own. And by the time that Maggie understood that it was Tessie's, which she did eventually understand, Tessie didn't want it anymore. Tessie was like, yeah, I'm kind of over that. And so now we have it and it's out all the time and that's totally fine. But Tessie is like, yeah, no, I don't care about that thing. And so now Maggie has it out there and she spends the day lining the icons up, designing her own day and using it like a visual schedule, which is pretty cool to see. Like the other day I saw she had designed wash hair, wash hands, take nap. She had her whole little day planned out of what she wanted to do with her day using the PECS book, using Tessie's PECS book. And Tessie's just like, Tessie would be our latest talker in the family. A lot of people ask that question, which I guess is relevant. 4 of our 5 kids had a speech delay. Paul had a speech delay also when he was younger. I did not. James did not have a speech delay. James's speech is pretty advanced. He is our second youngest kid. When he was tested when he was tested at the end of being 5, he had the vocabulary, they said between the ages of 19 and 90. So basically he maxed out the vocabulary section. Everyone else has at least like pronunciation-wise, speaking-wise, speech delay, varying amounts. Our oldest daughter did not speak until she was about 3. Clearly, and when I finally had a speech eval because we had a really hard time getting her into speech because we were homeschooling, and when we went to the school district and tried to get her into school, when we lived in a totally different school district than we do now. She was 6 at that point when we finally got her into speech. She tested at 2 years old. In our current school district, she graduated from speech last year at the age of 10 and is done with speech, and while she is autistic and has ADHD, she doesn't have an IEP or any sort of help in classes. She's in advanced classes and does really well in school. Our second daughter also had and has a speech delay, but hers progressed differently. She's been in speech since she was 3. She is 10 now, and her speech is still very different.
Does he laugh at teeth?
He has big girl teeth.
Patch laugh at teeth?
Patch lost his teeth.
Patch laugh at teeth?
Yep,
Best
Patch
snow
lost his
day
teeth.
ever, guys.
Best snow day ever. Patch lost his tooth.
We are waiting right now to get her brand new AAC device from her speech therapist. I can understand her a lot and I feel like our communication is pretty good, but a lot of other people have trouble understanding her. By the time she was Tessie's age, Tessie is 4.5, a little over 4.5 now. Maggie did have a lot more words than Tessie does at this point in time, because Maggie was already saying like 2 and 3 word phrases quite a bit at this point. She was already saying all her colors and lots of things about all of her favorite special interests. So Maggie was talking a lot by the age that Tessie is right now. Next came Patrick.
He has like a yellow thing in the middle and 2 arms that are like, pew. Can I show you?
Patrick started speech when he was 2. I took him into his doctor and expressed some concerns right around the time, right, maybe a little before he turned 2 actually, and we got hooked up with Early On, which is our state's early intervention program, and an early intervention therapist started coming to our house, and it was pretty great. We went to like a early intervention play group for speech. I mean, well, he did speech, lots of kids were there for lots of different reasons, and he was in speech until he aged out of the group, and then he started speech back up again when he went to kindergarten, or yeah, kindergarten basically, I think, or preschool. I think he started speech back up again when he went to preschool, when he was evaluated. Once he went to public school, they said he needed speech again, and so it started back up again. He was out for a little while because they said he didn't need it when he graduated, but then by the time he started up again, they said he did. And then James, who I already talked about.
I did an excellent one.
There, that is an excellent one. Good job, dude.
Who does not have a speech delay, and then Tessie, who this whole entire video is about because I get the questions so often. So yeah, I used to worry a lot because I expected Tessie to at least be hitting the same milestones that Maggie hit, but Tessie's a different person, and verbal communication isn't the end all be all. If there's one thing that the last few years have taught me, it's that there are a lot of different ways of communicating. A lot of people ask about sign language. We did so many signing time videos and tried so much sign language over the years, and while very, very basic signs have been helpful, more and all done, just those signs are helpful, but more in-depth signing never really seems to work. We've tried it basically with all the kids, and talking to speech therapists, they've kind of said the same thing, that it doesn't usually seem to go very far or work very well for whatever reason for a lot of kids who are autistic, and that at least has been our experience. I mean, it more seemed to be very, very effective. Honestly, after seeing the way that Tessie uses PECS, was able to use PECS to communicate, I am sure that we are going to find a method eventually that works for her, whether it is speech or whether it is something like the AAC device that Maggie is getting. I am determined to make 2021 the year that Tessie gets her own as soon as possible. That is pretty much it. So anyways, if you ever ask that question, does Tessie talk? No, she doesn't. She is 4.5 now and she doesn't, answering that frequently asked question. Anyways, that is it for today. If you like this video, we'd love it if you'd give it a thumbs up, and if you're interested in all things autism, we'd love it if you'd hit subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.